Welcome to the course Formal Language and Automata Theory. In this lecture, we are going to discuss about the concept of undecidability, and the following topics are covered. A language which is not recursively enumerable language, then an undecidable problem that is recursively enumerable, then undecidable problems about Turing machines. Let us move to the introduction of undecidability. So a problem is said to be undecidable, or first, what is a decidable? Several times we discussed this one. A problem is said to be decidable or solvable means if there exists an algorithm to solve that problem. What algorithm does takes as input an instance of that problem and it determines whether the answer to that instance means input is either yes or no. Otherwise, the problem is said to be undecidable or unsolvable. Means there is no algorithm to determine an instance having the answer to that instance is yes or no. That is called as undecidable. The same definition you can see with respect to undecidable. A problem is said to be undecidable or unsolvable if and only if there is no algorithm that takes as input an instance of the problem and determines whether the answer to that instance is yes or no. With respect to language, a problem whose language is recursive language is said to be decidable or solvable. Otherwise, the problem is undecidable or unsolvable. With respect to recursively enumerable language, so we can't say is decidable. Only with recursive languages only. Then coming to Turing machine, undecidability. Turing machines can simulate real computers, even those without the limits that we know exist today. We shall have a rigorous argument that the following problem statement you can see. Does this Turing machine accept the code for itself as input? So this can't be determined. This can't be solved by a computer. Then generally we have to relax those practical limits. So even Turing machine also can't this problem. Then the problem is said to be undecidable. So here undecidable problems solved by a Turing machine are divided into two classes. First one, those have an algorithm, a Turing machine that halts whether or not it accepts its input. The second category, those that are only solved by Turing machine that may run forever on inputs. That means not halted, means not accept. So thus our target is the techniques for showing problems to be undecidable means have no algorithm. So irrespective of whether or not they are accepted by the Turing machine. So that fails to halt on some input. So finally, the concept of undecidability is used to prove a problem that is undecidable or unsolvable by Turing machine. Whereas the concept of pumping lemma for regular languages and context-free languages. So what is use of that pumping lemma to prove a language which is not regular language? Then the pumping lemma for context-free languages is used to prove a language which is not context-free. Similar to that, a problem which is undecidable means unsolvable. There is no algorithm to solve that problem that can be proved using the concept of undecidability. So here using Turing machine. So now here the first concept related to this undecidability so about Turing machine with respect to recursively enumerable language. That is a language that is not recursively enumerable language. So in this first, we will see how to enumerate the binary strings, then how to find codes for Turing machine, then the concept of diagonalization language. By using these three concepts, so here, so we can prove a language that is not recursively enumerable. That means undecidable. So now a language L is recursively enumerable. We know this concept already covered. So if L equal to L of M means for some Turing machine M which accepts this language, then our longer range goal is to provide undecidable the language consisting of a pair M comma W such that where M is a Turing machine, it is coded in the binary form with input alphabet 0 comma 1. Then W is the string of zeros and ones combination only. Then the Turing machine M accepts the input string W. So the pair consisting of these three conditions. So now how to enumerate the binary strings? So let us say if W is a binary string, then it can be treated as 1W as a binary integer I. Then we shall call W as the ith string. That is, suppose in W what it contains, first it contains null. So that is null is the first string. Then what it contains, first input, that is 0. 0 is the second symbol or second string. Then next symbol is 1. 1 is the third string. Then if you can take, see, all these are all null with 0 length, 0 and 1 with length 1, then with length 2 combination. So 0 0, that will be treated as the next sequence. That is fourth one. Then 0 1 is the fifth one. Then 1 0 is the sixth one. Then 1 1 is the seventh one, and so on. So like set of strings are generated. So equivalently, strings are ordered by length with 0, 1, 2, and so on. And strings of equal length are ordered lexicographically. So with the sequence, with the 0 length, with the length 1, with the length 2, and so on. Now, what are the codes used for Turing machine? Here we'll take binary strings from Turing machine. Here we will restrict ourselves to Turing machine with input alphabet as 0, 1. Then assign some positive integers to the three classes of elements involved in every transition or move. The first one is any transition, what it contains, set of states, then what it contains, tau, tape symbols, then what it contains, direction of the read or write header, either left or right. So all these three combinations are coded as shown here. So states are nomenclatured as first Q1 is the start state, then final state can be named as Q2, then all other states other than initial and final, you can name it as Q3, Q4, and so on. Then the symbols, here sigma we have taken 0, 1 combination only. The first symbol 0, you can make it as X1. Then the second symbol 1, you can make it as X2. Same order you have to follow. Then blank symbol, you can make it as X3. Wherever blank is there, you can substitute X3. Wherever 0 is there, you can substitute X1. Wherever 1 is there, you can substitute X2, and so on. Further, any inputs, you can continue with the suffixes X4, X5, and so on. Then directions. In any move, we have only two directions, either left or right. Left direction can be named as direction 1, D suffix 1. Then right direction can be named as D2. So that is direction 2. So using these code suffixes, you can represent into the unary string format is 0 power I. Like computable functions, how we represented the arguments in the form of unary string 0 power I. Then if more than one argument is there, then separated with the digit 1. Same concept is used here. Suppose if we have a move or transition like this, delta of qi comma xj equal to qk comma xl comma dm. So this rule is represented by using the unary string. Then all the arguments are separated by 1. The first string qi represented as 0 power I, then separated with digit 1. The second symbol xj is represented as 0 power j, separated with 1. Then the third one, right hand side, qk is represented as 0 power k, then separated with digit 1. Then xl is represented as 0 power l, then separated with 1. Then dm is represented as 0 power m. So same as computable functions concept, all the arguments are represented in the form of unary string 0 power I. Then more than one argument is there, separated with digit 1. So here I, j, and so on, all the argument power values are greater than 0. So there cannot be two consecutive ones in these strings. Whenever you can expand this, so all zeros are there, but in between zeros, one is there, only single one. So you won't get two consecutive ones at any instance. Therefore, this is for one transition, the code. Like multiple transitions, all transition codes are combined for a final Turing machine by concatenating the codes for each of its move, separated with 1 1 as the punctuation. So that is denoted by for first move code. Let us say this is code 1. Then see code 1 separated with the punctuation 1 1. Then code 2, that is the second move code, then separated with 1 1. Then third move code, code 3, separated with 1 1, and so on. So here code 1 to code n. So is the code for one transition of move. So like that, we can encode. Now let us say one example. A Turing machine M is given. The states are Q1 to Q6, input alphabet is 0, 1, tau equal to 0, 1 blank, then final state f equal to q2. Now the transitions are given. Now you can see this can be encoded as, let us say, first move delta of q1 blank equal to q6 comma blank comma r. You can substitute the nomenclature what we used. This can be written as delta of q1 blank is denoted by x3. Now q6 remains same. Wherever suffixes are there, keep as it is. Now blank again x3. Then the direction r, l is denoted as d1, r as denoted as d2. Now this can be encoded as with unit string 0 power 1 separated with 1, then 0 power 3 separated with 1, then q6 means 0 power 6 separated with 1, then x3 means 0 power 3 separated with 1, then d2 means 0 power 2. Now you can expand this one here 0, 1, then 3 zeros, then 1, then 6 zeros, then 1, then 3 zeros, then 1, then 2 zeros. Now see, all are separated with the digit 1. Now this is called as code 1. So this is code 1 for the first transition. Similarly, for second transition, you may call it as code 2 and so on. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is code 7. Now all are concatenated with code 1 with 1, 1 punctuation, then code 2 with 1, 1 punctuation, and so on, code 7. This is the final code for the complete Turing mission. So now we can see the same thing is shown here in this table. You can see move wise the coding is given here, and then the final result will be concatenated by using the punctuation 1, 1. So what I explained here. So you can substitute the nomenclature what we defined. So wherever suffixes are not there. So if it is in the form of tape symbols x1, x2, leave it, no problem. Even blank also. Then states already anyway, those are all with the combination of q1 to qn combination. Now you can see this is the final code for the Turing mission M. Code 1, 1, 1, code 2, 1, 1, and so on. Now you can see. So this is move 1 code concatenated with 1, 1. Then this is move to or transition to code separated with 1, 1. So and so on. This is move 7 or transition 7 code. So like that we have to do codes for Turing missions with the binary strings. So then how to enumerate Turing missions with this binary codes. So then here you have to recall, we can convert binary string to integers by prepending a 1 and treating the resulting string as base 2 integer. Thus it makes sense to talk about the ith binary string and the ith Turing mission corresponding. Ith Turing mission means related to ith binary string. Suppose if I makes no sense as a Turing mission, assume that the ith Turing mission accepts nothing. So that means I means I value not accepting with Turing mission. Then ith Turing mission not accepts the ith binary string. Then the table of acceptance is denoted below table. Here which is combination of string and Turing mission. So string J and corresponding Turing mission I. Suppose string 1 Turing mission is 1, string 2 corresponding to Turing mission 2, and so on, string n corresponding to Turing mission n. So if you can take a pair with combination of string and Turing mission, so let us say the combination value x. If x equal to 0 means, so what is the meaning of this? It won't accept, means the ith Turing mission does not accept the jth string. So ith Turing mission, that means Turing mission 3 does not accept the string 5 at 5th position. So if x equal to 1 means it accepts. So using this table of acceptance with combination of Turing mission and string, you can say the corresponding pair, whether it is accepted or not with corresponding Turing mission. So with this, so one concept is used here, diagonalization. So diagonalization long ways is defined based on the previous table of acceptance. So whenever we have a table like the previous slide what we demonstrated, we can diagonalize by taking diagonal combination. So that is construct a sequence D by complementing each bit along the major diagonal. Formally, the diagonalization sequence is defined as D equal to A1, A2 and so on An, where Ai equal to 0. Suppose if the pair I comma I in the table entry is 1, which means accepts. If the pair in the table I comma I equal to 0 means which not accepts. Two cases, accept or not accept. 0 means not accept, 1 means accepts. Now, by taking one argument with the diagonalization combination, so could D, that means the diagonalization sequence, be a row, means representing the language accepted by a Turing machine of the table. Suppose it were the jth row, let us say, but D disagrees with jth row at the jth column. Thus, D is not a row. So this is the argument. So this problem we can't solve because this is undecidable. No algorithm to solve this problem. Now define a language for this diagonalization. So named as L suffix D, wherever LD means a diagonalization language is defined as W, such that W is the ith binary string and the corresponding Turing machine is ith Turing machine does not accept W. So we have shown that LD is not recursively enumerable language, means it has no Turing machine. That's why a language that is not recursively enumerable language, because there is no Turing machine to accept it. Now the same thing can be represented in the form of theorem. A diagonalization language LD is not a recursively enumerable language. That is, there is no Turing machine to accept that diagonalization language. Therefore, the diagonalization language LD is undecidable or unsolvable. Then other undecidable problems about Turing machine related to recursively enumerable language. Here we will use the concept of recursive language, then complement of recursive and recursive enumerable language. Then another new language we will use universal language denoted as L suffix U. Then undecidability of universal language. So these are all some other undecidable problems. So which are recursively enumerable. So you can recall again once what is the concept of problem, then decidable, undecidable. Informally, a problem is yes or no question about an infinite set of possible instances. For example, in graph theory, let us take one problem which is called as Hamilton cycle. Does graph G have a Hamilton cycle? Means cycle that touches each node exactly once. Here, each undirected graph is an instance of the Hamilton cycle problem. This is example of a problem statement. So now, formally, this is informally a problem is a simply yes or no question. But formally, a problem means a language, which gives yes or no. Each string encodes some instances. The string is in the language if and only if the answer to this instance of the problem is yes, means accept. If it is no, means not accept. Now another example, a problem about Turing machines. We can think of language LD, that is diagonalization, as a problem. A language, now a problem is a language. Does this Turing machine not accept its own code? So this is undecidable problem. We can't solve this problem, no algorithm. So here we could also think of it as a problem about binary string. Means do you see how to trace it? So this is one example problem about Turing machine. Now coming to decidable problem means or solvable problem. A problem is decidable if there is an algorithm to answer it. Then an algorithm means formally it is a Turing machine that halts on all inputs, whether accepted or not accepted, but all inputs are scanned. Then another way is decidable problem is simply nothing but recursive language, not recursively enumerable. Decidable means solvable. So that is equivalent to recursive language. Otherwise, the problem is said to be undecidable, means no algorithm. Then that is recursively enumerable language. The relationship among decidable problems with undecidable problems, combination of recursive and recursive enumerable languages are shown by using a diagram. The diagram is called as bull's eye picture. Here you can see inside the diagram highlighted with yellow color. which shows decidable problems, nothing but recursive language. Then another circle, outer one, here we have taken recursively enumerable languages. Recursively enumerable language means that is undecidable, unsolvable. Then non-recursively enumerable languages, those are all represented outside of the outer diagram, outer circle. Then another language also undecidable language, that is diagonalization language also represented outside of the circle. Then here are there any languages here? So question. So this is the relationship among decidable and undecidable languages, which is called as bullseye picture. So then from the abstract to the real. So while the fact that the diagonalization language is undecidable means it does not impact the real world directly. So we first shall develop some Turing machine related to problems which are undecidable. But our goal is to use the theory to show some real problems also which are undecidable, means unsolvable, no algorithm to solve that problem. So now see some of the undecidable problems related to this one. Can a particular line of code in a program ever be executed? This is one example of undecidable problem. Is given context-free grammar ambiguous? This problem we already addressed during the properties of context-free languages. Do two given context-free grammar generate the same language? This is also addressed there. So these are all some of the undecidable problems about the concept of undecidability. Then another language which is called as universal language. So which is an example of recursive enumerable language, but not recursive language, which is called as universal language, that is denoted as L suffix U. So this language is accepted by a Turing machine, which is called as universal Turing machine, abbreviated as UTM. That is the UTM takes as input the code for some Turing machine M and some binding string W and accepts if and only if M accepts W. So first here we have a Turing machine M which accepts W. Then we have universal Turing machine which accepts the same string M dash. Then only it is possible. Then any language that is accepted with the universal Turing machine, that is called as universal language. So now here, see, let us see how to work the universal Turing machine or the design of the universal Turing machine. Here we don't have any problem or model, just theoretically we'll see. Inputs are of the form M triple one W, but a valid Turing machine code never has triple one. So we can split M from the string W. The universal Turing machine must accept its input if and only if M is a valid Turing machine code and the Turing machine accepts W, then only the universal Turing machine accepts its input. So now the universal Turing machine have several tapes like multi-tape Turing machine. The tape one, what it contains, the input M triple one W. Then tape 2 holds the tape of M. Then mark the current head position of M. Then tape 3 holds the state of Turing machine M. So 3 tapes are there. Now in universal Turing machine, all 3 tapes are involved parallelly, so to perform its operation. Now coming to step 1 of the universal Turing machine design. First, the universal Turing machine checks that M is having valid code for a Turing machine or not. For example, all moves have 5 components, let us say. No 2 moves have the same state or symbol as the first 2 components. Like that, it verifies valid code for the Turing machine is exist or not. Then if M is not valid, then its language is empty. So the universal Turing machine halts without accepting the string or language. Compulsory M contains a valid code only. Then only the universal Turing machine accepts its input. Then step 2, the universal Turing machine examines M to see how many of its own tape squares it needs to represent one symbol of M. Then next step, it initializes tape 2 represent the tape of M with input string W and initializes tape 3 to hold the start state. Here you can see tape 2 which stores input, tape 3 consisting of the start state. So like that, all tapes are involved. Then what tape 1 contains, you can see. Finally, in step 4, it simulates the Turing machine M. So look for a move on tape 1. It matches the state on tape 3 and the tape symbol under the head on tape 2. Now here you can see tape 1, tape 3 and tape 2 all are involved final simulation of M. So if found, change the symbol and move the head marker on the tape 2. The movement of head will be in tape 2 and change the state on tape 3. Why? Because initially we have considered the initial state at tape 3. Then movement of states are in change of states are in tape 3. Then movement of read or write header in tape 2. Then tape 1 which stores the actual input. Finally, if M accepts, then the universal Turing machine also accepts the input. So these are all the steps for design of universal Turing machine, which accepts the universal language denoted as LU. So now finally, by considering the diagonalization language and the universal language, here let us see, we shall use the diagonalization language LD and the universal language LU, whose status regarding decidability and recursive enumerability. So with this, other undecidable or non-recursively enumerable languages are exhibit or shown, which are undecidable. Then other concept is undecidable problems about Turing machine. So one of the important concept used here, reduction. That reduction is called as Turing reducibility. So what is the meaning of Turing reducibility? To reduce one language to another language or one problem to another problem. That is nothing but Turing reducibility. So Turing reducibility is a more general technique to reduce a language to another language. That is, suppose L1 is a language, reduce it to another language L2. It consists simply of having that L1 is recursive in L2. That's the concept of Turing reducibility. So now, in general, if we have an algorithm to convert an instance of a problem P1 to an instance of a problem P2, so that have the same answer, then it is said to that P1 reduces P2. So this proof is used to show that P2 is at least as hard as P1. Thus, if P1 is not recursive, then P2 can't be recursive. Then reverse, if P2 is non-recursive, then P1 can't be recursive. So that is the Turing reducibility. Diagrammatically, let us see the reduction is shown below figure, which shows reduction turn positive instances into positive and negative instances to negative. So here you can see in this diagram, top part S to S means positive to positive. Then the second part is no. That means negative instance to negative instance. So no to no. Problem P1, problem P2. So positive instance to positive instance, negative instance to negative instance. So here care to be taken to reduce a known hard problem to prove to be at least as hard. So never the opposite. So that is the concept of Turing reducibility. Formally, a reduction from P1 to P2 is a Turing machine that takes an instance of P1 written on its tape, then halts with an instance of P2 on its tape using Turing machine, the reduction. So it is defined formally like this. Then we shall generally describe reductions as if they were computer programs. Means an instance of program 1 as an input and produces an instance of problem 2 or program 2 as output with respect to programming languages. So finally, there is one theorem related to Turing reducibility. If there is a reduction from P1 to P2, then P1 is undecidable, then P2 is also undecidable. Then P1 is non-recursively enumerable, then P2 is also non-recursively enumerable. So that is the concept of Turing reducibility, one of the problem which is undecidable problem about Turing machine. Then by using empty languages also, Turing machines that accept empty languages, which is undecidable. This is also. So let us define the following two languages. If a string W is a binary string, then it is represented by a Turing machine let us say m suffix I. The first language is L of E. So L of E is empty language denoted as m such that L of m equal to pi, empty. Then the second language L suffix Ne is non-empty language, which is denoted by L suffix Ne and defined as m such that L of m not equal to pi. These two languages are complement to one another. So here LE and LNE are both languages over the binary alphabet 0, 1, and they are complements of one another. So one is empty, other one is non-empty. So second one is non-empty, first one is empty, like that. So complement of each other. So now there are some theorems related to accept the empty languages. First one theorem is non-empty language denoted as L suffix Ne is recursively enumerable language. Then theorem 2, the non-empty language is not recursive. Then theorem 3, the empty language is not recursively enumerable. So combination of recursive and recursively enumerable languages. So with the combination of empty language, these three theorems are defined. So then another undecidable problem about Turing machine. So by using one theorem, which is called as Rice theorem. So and using the properties of recursively enumerable languages. First, here we have to define what is the property of a language. Any set of languages, you can take L1, L2, and so on, is called as a property of that language. For example, the infiniteness property is the set of infinite languages. Then the finiteness property is the set of finite languages. As always, languages must be defined by some descriptive devices. The most general device known as Turing machine. So we shall think of a property as a problem about Turing machines. Let LP a language with set of binary Turing machine codes for Turing machine M such that L of M has property P. So that is the property of a language. So now one kind of property which is called as trivial property, which is just significant, just important. So there are two trivial properties of P for which LP is decidable. So that means solvable. Here always false property which contains no recursively enumerable languages. Then always true property which contains every recursively enumerable language. Other than these trivial properties, you can take other non-trivial properties. So of recursively enumerable language, those are all undecidable. That is called as Rice theorem. Now let us see the statement of this theorem. For every other means non-trivial property P of the language, that is recursive enumerable language, the property LP is undecidable, means unsolvable. So Rice theorem is also used to prove some problems which are undecidable. So now, so what is the plan for proving of Rice theorem? First, a lemma is needed. So that is recursive languages are closure under complementation. So we need the technique known as reduction. Just now we discussed Turing reducibility. So whether an algorithm to convert instances of one problem to instances of another problem. So then we can prove the Rice theorem. Now, by using closure property of recursive languages. So by using complementation is defined as if L is a language with the alphabet sigma closure, then the complement of L is denoted as sigma closure minus L, and it is denoted by L suffix C. So also sometimes L dash or L bar, which is complement of L. So using this complementation property of recursive language. So here the lemma is given as if L is recursive, then the complement of L is also recursive. Then coming to proof, first we have to define L equal to L of M for a Turing machine M. Then construct another Turing machine M dash which accepts the complement of language L, that is LC. Then M dash has only one final state. Then let us say the new state F. Then M dash simulates the Turing machine M. But if M enters an accepting state, then M dash halts without accepting state, complement. So M enters to accepting state. Then complement of M is M dash halts without accepting state. Then reverse, If M halts without accepting, then M dash instead as a move taking it into state F, accepting. So in state F, finally the M dash halts. So each missions are complement of others. So then there are some applications of undecidable problems with respect to Rice theorem. So what are the problems given here with respect to Turing machine specifications? By using Rice theorem, we can prove all these problems are undecidable. See, what are the concepts we are discussing here? All are related to undecidable, not decidable. Means unsolvable. There is no solution to solve those problems. But how to prove there is no solution to solve the problems? That is the concept of undecidability. So now we now have any number of undecidable questions about Turing machines. The first one is whether the language accepted by a Turing machine is a regular language, or this can be defined as is L of M is a regular language. So this problem can't be solved. That's why this is called as undecidable. This undecidability can be proved by using application of Rice theorem. Then the second undecidable problem is whether the language accepted by Turing machine is a context-free language, or is LFM is a context-free language. This is also undecidable. Does LFM includes any palindromes? This is also undecidable problem. So all these problems we can prove by using Rice theorem, which are undecidable, means unsolvable. Then another problem, whether the language accepted by Turing machine is empty. Same thing is denoted as is LFM empty, where M is a Turing machine. All these problems we are defining with respect to Turing machine only. Then does LFM contain more than 10,000 strings? More than 10,000 strings. This is also undecidable or unsolvable. So these are all the some of the problems with respect to Turing machine specifications. So which are undecidable or unsolvable. So this can be done by using the concept of Rice theory. Okay, now let us come to the summary of this lecture. Here, first we discussed about the concept of undecidability, then decidability, then a language that is not recursively enumerable, then an undecidable problem that is recursively enumerable, then undecidable problems about Turing machine. Okay, now I stop here. So next class we will come up with other concepts related to this undecidability.